challenge here, though. Take it away, Christy.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Can you all hear me? Karen, if you can just say yes or no, that would let me know.
We hear you.
Great. Good morning. Thank you so much for the introduction, Karen. I actually forgot I had a minor in international relations until you just reminded me right now. So I appreciate that. I am going to talk about two bills today that have actually passed into law in 2020 that I'd like to cover regarding supply and affordability. And then I have a presentation that I'm going to share with all of you. And then I cannot hear or see you, and I apologize for that. I wish I was in the room with all of you today. So if you do have any questions, I'm gonna have Karen help facilitate that at the end and unmute herself, and we can hopefully have a discourse, a very successful discourse through this hybrid virtual live event. That being said, like I said, I'm Christy from CAR, and today I'm here to talk about housing affordability and supply and how we are working with the state of California to make the American dream happen for a lot of us. There are two bills that have passed last year that I want to flag as something that is changing the landscape of California. One of them being SB 1079 and AB 1851. AB 1851 is the Parking Lot of Religious Institutions Act that would prohibit a local jurisdiction from denying a housing development project proposed by a religious institution solely on the basis that the project would reduce the total number of parking spaces available at the place of worship, provided that the total reduction does not exceed 50% of the existing parking spaces. So this bill is basically authorizing the local jurisdictions there to say, if you would like to institute affordable housing development projects, you are allowed to, and you cannot be denied because you are a religious institution anymore. CAR did not have a stance on this one actually last year. We watched this bill, it passed. It will come into effect 2022, and we will continue to see how that affects housing development projects in California. That being said, we think this is we're pretty neutral on the bill. If it creates more housing and religious institutions don't have too much of a total reduction of parking spaces, or it causes too much of an issue with availability, then I'd say let bygones be bygones on that one. One of the other bills that I just mentioned, SB 1079, that was signed into law in September, is the bill that CAR was actually a bit opposed. We did sign a letter to the governor asking him to politely veto the bill because we found that there were issues with it. Now, I do want to preface by saying that we understand that this would have, this could expand affordability and allow more people to purchase foreclosures, but there were some issues with the bill that we highlighted for the governor. I will walk that through with you. Again, I want to say, if you do have any questions, comments, concerns about that, hold it to the end, and I would be happy to answer as best as I can on behalf of CAR and why this was a little bit, a bit of a non-starter for us as a bill. So basically, if for any of you that are not familiar with SB 1079, the bill the bill is going to provide a 45-day period for specified persons or entities to purchase property after a trustee sale. The bill basically is going to prevent bundling of these separate properties, and it's going to allow nonprofits, organizations such as that, to be able to put in an offer, and they would have first choice basically in a property that was being foreclosed. Despite all the good intentions there, we believe that this change will not materialize into increased owner occupancy, and it really could very well harm owners that are losing their properties to foreclosures, because it will prolong, lack of maintenance of property, current tax rates on it, just to mention a few things. We believe that providing a post-sale 45-day period for eligible bidders to outbid the purchaser at the foreclosure sale will just discourage and depress bidding. Potential bidders are just not going to want to see their funds tied up for 45 days without interest, if they're just waiting to see if someone's going to swoop in and take it. We think that's just going to cause some just undue hardship with the foreclosure process. There's also the concern that successful bidders could file for bankruptcy during that period, cancel the cashier's check, decide to purchase another property, and not really have any practical or realistic recourse there. So during this period, the property is going to not likely be maintained. Again, property taxes are not going to be brought current, and this is going to step up that 45-day process and create more risks in it. The residents and occupied, give me 1 second. Let me have my roommate walk by me. Working from home, right? So like I was saying about SB 1079, the primary residence the owner occupant must make the residence their primary residence and occupy the home for at least 1 year, but there is no enforcement of that. So there is a fundamental flaw that will allow individuals claiming to be owner occupants to kind of take advantage of that 45-day period, because the broadly defined eligible bidder is just not sufficient enough for us at CAR to make sure that these loopholes are not taken care of. It also, there's a part of the bill that will also increase the failure of maintaining foreclosed properties from $1,000 a day to $2,000 a day after 30 days to $5,000 per day. At CAR, we've just seen zero evidence that the penalty amount in current law is not working to achieve that intended effect. It was created during the Great Recession to encourage purchasers at foreclosure to speed up the process here, especially lenders. We didn't want them to just sit on foreclosed properties and not really push to sell. But that being said, we just think that this is arbitrary, and there really isn't a reason for us to double the fine here and create a more undue burden on this. It's not really going to change much in our opinion. So that's a little bit about SB 1079. Again, I do ask that you hold all your questions and comments, and we will talk about that after. I'm going to share my screen now, and I would like to kind of talk about the 2021 legislative session and discuss what we are working on this year, what we hope to see passed, what we hope to see not passed, and go from there. And then we can kind of jump into a Q&A. I'm gonna need either Miguel or Karen to tell me if they see this, though, just to make sure, because I can't hear you all.
Sure. So I just turned the microphone on.
Oh, hi. Yes, I can hear you. Give me 1 second. Let me just turn this on, because I'm going to disappear, so I want to make sure you can see this. Can everybody see that?
Hold on, not quite yet. Let me make sure.
I'm screen sharing it. It says it's here, but let me know if I can.
We see it.
Okay, awesome. And I'm going to flip through. Can you see the flip through? Because sometimes it freezes on the first page. I just want to make sure.
Yes, we can see it.
Great. Okay, awesome. So 2021 priority legislation. Let's talk a little bit about what we are working on this year. Our policy priority is two sides of the coin here, advocating for increased housing supply and advocating for equity and fair housing for all Californians. We just want to bridge the wealth gap that has existed in California. So to do that, we have sponsored a fair housing legislative package. We have some bills that we support and some bills that we are sponsoring. The top bills here that we are really focused on this year are SCA2, SB 263, and AB 491. SCA2 would eliminate housing discrimination in the California Constitution. That is still pending in the Senate committee. SB 263 would require all real estate licensees to have implicit bias training as part of their renewal requirements. So it would add 2 hours on top of the 45 mandatory. That passed in the Senate and has been ordered to the Assembly. So we are feeling really confident about that one. And then AB 491 is prohibit the mixed rate property from isolating affordable rate renters from common areas and other units. That passed in the Assembly and is actually ordered to the Senate. So a little flip there. And we also feel confident about this one as well. I have a lot of bills that I'm going to run through on this presentation, and I don't want to go through and bore you with every single detail. So I am running through this kind of in a chronological order. If you have more questions, like I said, just notate it. I will also be sending this around as a handout if Karen has not already done so, and I will leave my email and my phone number. So if you have any more questions and want to get into the nitty-gritty about a specific piece of legislation, call and email me anytime. So just to speak on that, these are the bills that we are opposing because we think it will affect homeownership and housing affordability. AB 919, AB 946, AB 1199, and ACA 7. So for example, AB 919 would disproportionately affect very low and moderate income families by shifting the cost of those repairs to builder to low income homeowners, because it wants to cut the statute of repose for construction defects in half. AB 946, I'm sure a lot of you have actually seen this bill. It gets introduced a lot. It wants to eliminate the mortgage interest deduction for second homes. We just believe that families now more than ever rely on second homes. We don't think it's fair to homeowners. And it's a thing that has made a bigger significance in the COVID-19 pandemic, when people have been moving out and a lot of families are coming back together and moving home. We don't think that this burden should be placed on these family members who own a second property. 1199, that is the 25% gross receipt tax on renting or leasing out qualified property. We just think this is an arbitrary tax that's going to discourage housing supply. And I think that we believe that this is going to increase the cost of housing for renters, because the landlords are just going to add this fee onto rent. And it's almost a struggle right now as it is to pay rent. And we don't want to make that more of a burden and cause a bigger crisis on our hands here. And then ACA 7 is a constitutional amendment that would seek to amend the Constitution to permit local preemption of state law as it relates to land use, planning, and zoning. We actually did a red alert on this recently, and we are opposing this because local ordinance would supersede state law, and that would just make things very complicated in the state of California, and it would prevent the state from addressing housing shortages by, getting rid of state housing laws if the local counties can just start doing whatever they want. CAR bills that we are supporting that we have not co-sponsored ourselves are SBA 6, 7, 8, and 9. So 6 is the Neighborhood Homes Act, and this would require local government, to approve housing developments of at least 20 units per acre on lots that are zoned for commercial. So office, real estate, any of those buildings. We've seen a lot of them become non-existent and not in use during the COVID-19 pandemic. And we think this is going to encourage development of mixed income properties. It's going to make things more affordable. It's going to open up supply in the state of California, especially because a lot of us are probably not going back to our offices. Maybe not real estate as much, but a lot of industries are not returning to their office. So we want to be able to use that space, utilize that space in a efficient and facilitative way. This bill is still pending in the Senate, so I will keep you all updated if this moves by any means. Also, SB 7 and SB 8. These are more administrative clerical bills. This is going to create more entry-level market rate units. 7 is going to provide for an extension of the CEQA provision, and 8 is going to allow for an expansion of the sunset date for for local planning, zoning, and design. So that's just going to give a little bit more time for developers to get their projects submitted. Both of SB 7 was approved and signed into law by the governor, so we are very happy about that. And then SB 8 passed in the Senate. It has been ordered to the Assembly, so we do have full faith and confidence it will pass the Assembly and will help innovation here in California. And then SB 9. So this one is just a tad bit tricky in the sense that we support if it is amended. So we agree with the intent of the bill, but we want to prevent gentrification by tweaking the language just a little bit. So what SB 9 does now is it permits developers to take advantage of expedited approval for lot splits. And it allows them to split the lot 60-40. The issue there is it doesn't say how many times they can do it. So we want to put a little stopgate there to make sure that developer does not come in and do this to a whole neighborhood, because that would exacerbate the gentrification problem. So we're asking for amendment that would prohibit anyone from taking a complete advantage of this and doing it repetitively multiple times. It did not pass with our amendments in the Senate, but it passed the Senate and has been ordered to the Assembly. So we are going to work with the sponsors there and the Assembly to hopefully put some language, and we will support, and if that works out. Again, if it doesn't, I will keep you updated. We have not made a decision whether we are going to end up as a watch or end up being fully opposed if that does not happen. So just to talk a little bit about our legislative successes, I know I spoke about 946 on the mortgage interest deduction and 1199 on that 25% tax. Well, we were successfully able to stop both of those bills, including 854 from moving forward. They have now become 2-year bills in the legislature and will die after the session. So hopefully they do not get reintroduced, but if they do, we will do it again in the next session. But like I said, we think that a 25% tax on housing developers is just a little too burdensome, and the mortgage interest deduction on second homes would also be burdensome on families. I understand that California, the state of California, is looking to make money any way they can right now, especially after the COVID-19 pandemic, but we do not think it's fair that it falls on the back of developers and homeowners. So that being said, that is my presentation. I know that was a lot. Thank you guys for bearing with me. I can't hear you, so I hope I didn't bore you too much. Miguel or Karen, if you want to go ahead and unmute, I'd be happy to chat with the group. And feel free to introduce yourselves or tell me a little bit about you all. I wish I was there in person again to say hi, but here I am.
Great. Thank you, Christy. I don't know how we want to do this. If people want to come up to the computer and speak to the microphone, is probably the best way for you to hear them, I think.
Sure,
so
no problem.
that's what we'll do. So if anyone has questions, I'll just move away and you can come up and ask your question. That way I won't have to,
Sounds good. I can hear you perfectly, so that would work.
Okay.
Clarification or more information about
I don't know if somebody's speaking, but I cannot hear them too well.
We're all a little bit shy and not used to being.
Oh, we're shy.
So it's taking a little while.
Don't worry. I feel shy too. I feel like I'm speaking to myself.
Okay, so we're getting a question on SB 6.
Yeah, allowing commercial development, residential development in commercial zones.
So they're asking about SB 6. Is that all about allowing residential development in commercial zones?
Oh, yes. That would allow residential in commercial zones, correct.
And that would preempt local law.
And that would preempt local law?
Yes, it would be state law.
Thank you.
No problem.
Is there an affordability requirement to that?
I'm not entirely sure. I do not think so, but I will talk to our legislative team in Sacramento and get back to you on that. And if you don't mind, I am writing the questions down. So if you hear me typing, I apologize, so that I can remember to get back to you on this.
Hi, Ted Tybert from Santa Barbara County HCD. I was wondering if you could maybe just circle back to SB 91 as June 30th eviction moratorium is coming on the horizon, and maybe just give some I guess your opinion or just, yeah, any insights you have into sort of what July and August are.
Absolutely. So I just want to make you all aware that CAR has not issued a statement yet on the eviction moratorium. And if this is going to be, expanded till the end of the year. We have kind of stayed a little bit away from eviction moratorium. We are not taking a stance on it. We believe it is necessary. We understand why the state of California and the United States has done it. If it were to expand to the end of the year, we would continue to work with our rental property owners to ensure that payment is made on time, or through a payment plan. We've been working with a lot of different organizations to create different solutions for different problems. There is no one way to do this. Some buildings have filed for the rent relief and have been very successful on the federal level. Some owners have created a signed payment plan with their tenants that couldn't afford it for the next 4 years. This is kind of where we kind of run into an issue with the state legislature. Is a lot of these, there's going to be a lot of bills coming through the pipeline that are going to try and create relief, or demand that rental property owners get X, Y, Z. Some of them have been a little too burdensome. Some of them are too burdensome on rental property owners as well as tenants. And I think there is no one right solution that's going to fit all. And we are waiting and working with NAR to see on the federal level what more is coming before we work with the state legislature here in California. And I think the state legislature too is also waiting on the federal to see what happens. Does that answer your question? Or we could dive more into it a little bit if you want. There's a lot of prongs to that issue.
So, Christy, I have a follow-up on the same issue.
Absolutely.
Where is the biggest concern? Is it on the tenants or on the property owners?
For us, it's both. There's, like I said, CAR we've never in the history of CAR thought that we would be for an eviction moratorium and stopping that in and of itself. But I mean, given the circumstances, there was just no way we could ethically allow hundreds of thousands of people in the United States to be left on the street. But at the same time, we just hope that we take care of them, because when the eviction moratorium does expire, we do not want an influx. We already have a homeless problem as it is in California, which we can talk about that in a second as well, and what we're doing on that. But the problem is with rental property owners is that, you have relief on the top and you have relief on the bottom. So you have the banks that could be bailed out. Foreclosures that are an issue could be wiped away, and they are always usually taken care of. And you've got the tenants who are being protected right now by the eviction moratorium, but who's taking care of the rental property owners, especially the mom and pop rental property owners. And so that's where our biggest concern is. We do not want to forget about the small guys. And small guys, I mean, units with 4 apartments. If you lose 1 apartment, that's 25% of your full income for the year. Compared to a larger building that has 300 units, they can probably afford, to take less rent off of 1 or 2 apartments. So that's where our concern is how do we provide relief for them and make sure that they're being protected and that they get that they can at least get some coverage from the federal government. I hope that answers your question.
Morning, Christy. Thank you. I'm Doug Spondello from the city of Moore Park. I'm wondering if you can circle back to SB 9, the lot split bill. So I heard you mention that would allow for a primary unit and an ADU on each lot. Is the one ADU a special provision of SB 9? Because there's existing law that allows for like an ADU and a junior ADU, so a potential for 3 units. Could you clarify that?
Yes. So this is going to permit developers to take advantage of expedited lot splits. An ADU or junior ADU is included within the parcels, and that's going to be 2 units max for that.
Okay, so it's an ADU or a junior, but not both. Is that right?
I do not think it includes both, but it does say 2 units max. So let me clarify if you can have both.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you. Write that down.
Hi. Quick question regarding more of a question at large. So you mentioned AB 1851 regarding I think they're calling it Yes in God's Backyard. And then, and then there's like AB 1401. So my question is more in general to parking standards. There's a lot of items coming through with reduced parking standards. So more of a question at large, where does the car kind of sit on that?
Let me actually give me 2 seconds. Let me check on 1401. Let me see if I have it on we have a large file here internally that has almost every bill that we're watching, and because I don't have that one in my arsenal, 1401. I can see if I can pull it out for you. If not, I will follow up on that one and let you know if we've officially made a statement on that one. But 1851, we did not have a position on it last year. I'm pulling that up now. I will circle back if anyone wants to ask about anything else while I'm up here. CAR supports AB 1401. Just as an FYI. Anything else?
Yeah, I'm Rick Schrader from Many Mansions. We're an affordable housing nonprofit. I think you said that CAR supports SCA2, which would eliminate housing discrimination in the California Constitution.
Correct. We are actually co-sponsors of that bill.
Given the fact that housing discrimination is already illegal, what would this add?
Removing Article 24 in the state constitution.
Oh,
Which states, I don't have it off the top of my head, the exact language, but I'll tell you right now. I have it in my little file here. California. It's a very specific part that talks about due process, and I want to make sure I'm getting this right. Okay, it's, here we go. Article 24. Okay, it's Declaration of Rights. It's a long one. You know what I'm going to do instead? I'm going to send this to you. There's just no way we can talk about it. It's a couple paragraphs long. But it is about Article 24. So it is a very specific piece of the Constitution that we believe is hindering people from discriminatory practices.
one of the articles in the California Constitution that does negatively impact the development of affordable housing is Article 34. Has there been any effort to try to eliminate that?
I do not know that off the top of my head, but I can ask. That's the public housing project law, correct? If I'm not mistaken?
Right.
Right. Okay. I will do my due diligence on that one and get back to you. I'm adding that to my list.
We have questions from them.
Hi, good morning. My name is Gustavo. I'm with Cabrillo Economic Development Corporation. My question is going back to SB 6, allowing for more than 20 units on office, retail, or commercial space or zoned areas. I was just wondering, is there an element to that bill that requires those future residential projects to be mixed use, since they would be overlapping with these non-traditional zoning types? And secondly, going back to the question of parking, is there a parking reduction concept also part of that legislation, or that may be that would be maybe an area where, you know, the circle peg doesn't fit the square box necessarily, adding additional, you know, parking requirements to residential affordable housing tends to be one of the challenges that we run into. So if you can speak to that, I'd appreciate that.
Absolutely. So to answer your first question, does it have to be mixed use? Is that what you're asking? Like, does it have to be commercial and real estate? I'm sorry, I'm residential.
Correct. Yeah. Is there an element that if you do develop on office, retail, or commercial, that there has to be some mixed use component with that type of use, as well as in residential.
No, if it would permit developers to put housing on commercial sites without a zoning change, but they're not forcing developers to put housing on commercial property, if that's the question.
I guess what I'm clarifying is there a requirement for them, the commercial, if it is zoned commercial, you know, and we develop residential on it, me as an affordable housing developer, I typically prefer to just stick to residential as opposed to mixed use commercial. The main reason being that a lot of times in practice, that commercial space doesn't get leased out and ends up empty for a long period of time. And so not to say it's impossible, but that's the trend. So
Gotcha. Yep. Let me double check. I don't think so. I know the property has to qualify for it to be flexible zoning, is what it's called. Just 50% of or more of it has to be vacant for a period of at least 3 years when the application is submitted. And then it could be a multifamily development. It needs to be at least 2/3 of the square footage to residential use in that industrial zone. But I don't know if it means that you have to have commercial as well. You know, like it has to be like 60-40 or something. So let me double check on that to see if I have like a number for you or if there isn't a number.
Sure, and if there is an opportunity to impact that, just to let you know, I think most affordable housing developers will advocate for the lowest amount of, you know, commercial or retail to be required, so that we can focus more on the residential affordability to max out the space for housing units. And then if you can address the parking question, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Can you just repeat that parking question just so I know exactly what you're asking?
The question is just a similar concept. Is there any parking incentives, reductions included in this legislation to again allow for maximizing the space for more residential units, less parking spaces?
The bill does not touch on it at all. I think it goes by, from what we understand, it's just square footage of empty property. I don't know if that means empty property including lots. So I will get back to you on that, but there is no exact language in it. So it depends on how it's going to be interpreted if that passes.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you. You guys have some great questions. I like the very wonky in this room.
Chris, I think we're getting toward the end of the questions. I do have one just kind of general about the process. How does CAR go about deciding what bills to support or sponsor? Is there sort of a analytical review process that you take on, and how does that work?
Yes, there is. And actually, Marta knows more about this than I do, as this is my first year going through that CAR. But the board meets every year, and the board consists of a lot of rental property owners, brokers, real estate agents, you name it. And they speak on and debate legislation for about a couple days and decide what they want to support this year. And they vote and make a decision on a yay or nay. And that kind of defines the packages that we decide to go forward with. And then it is our job as the government relations team here to ensure that we push it forward for the year.
So Miguel, if I can touch base on that, it's actually a very large and long deliberative process. So they meet as a body, but I'm talking like 250, 500, people in the room, 1,000 at some point. So it's a very deliberative process statewide, and you get realtors from all over that come up and sit on the board and sit on the committees and walk through these. And then they meet during the year also as the legislation is modified. So it's a very deliberative process that occurs. It's interesting. Okay. Thanks, Christy.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
Informative.
So, I have your
if you haven't changed anything from what you sent me yesterday, I have the PowerPoint and I will put that into a PDF and send it out